I'm Vinod, and today's conversation, we're going to talk about non-compete agreements. Non-compete agreements have been in the news recently because a bunch of companies are trying to enforce these rules on early in career employees and preventing them from joining certain companies. So we'll get into the legality of do these non-compete agreements work, understand what they are, share some examples about where it has been used in the past, and also give some tips in terms of how do you get away from a non-compete clause. So that's going to be the focus of today's conversation. So let's begin with understanding what's a non-compete agreement. So first and foremost, there are two types of agreements which a company can make an employee sign. One is a non-compete agreement. The other one is a non-solicitation agreement. The non-solicitation agreement is actually much more easier to understand because it's more about preventing you from using your confidential data. For example, if you're working in a sales and marketing organization, you have a customer list of emails or phone numbers. The company would not want you to take this data and go to a competitor or set up your own business and reach out to the same customers. So non-solicitation is a type of non-compete agreement. But a non-compete agreement by its very nature means that you cannot join competitors and you cannot join certain companies in the same line of work once you finish working for a company. So this is what it means. Ideally, a non-compete agreement is meant to target very senior employees within a company. So the key catch is basically that, are you in a position which can influence company strategy and the direction of the company? So when you're talking about senior employees, you're talking of at least a vice president and above. Typically, a CEO is a person who would be involved in these scenarios where non-compete agreements are involved. Entry-level employees have really no influence on a company's strategy or direction, business direction. So it's a farce in terms of companies trying to enforce this on early in career employees. Let's look at some examples of where it has been used in the past. So Apple used to have a clique or a group of companies where it said that you cannot join these companies after you work in Apple. And they also used to do, this is way in the past, when they used to actually bring down the cost of hiring software engineers by fixing a certain wage and making sure that the competitors enter into a pact and not pay employees. So this was banned by courts in California, saying that what Apple was doing was blatantly illegal and they were asked to pay heavy fines. And very recent incident in India is where Infosys has stepped in and said that if you have worked in Infosys and if you have worked with clients, like for example, it could be a financial company like JP Morgan, where other competitors also work, then you will not be able to join these competitors once you finish working. So assume that JP Morgan Chase has a bunch of IT projects, which is it has outsourced to Infosys, TCS, IBM, Accenture, and so on. So an Infosys employee will not be able to join TCS, IBM, or Accenture for 6 months after they finish working. So that really is what the non-compete agreement being asked by Infosys means. So you should ask, why is the company doing it? Actually, it turns out that Infosys is facing a lot of attrition. It's facing around 27.7% attrition, which is an extraordinarily high number. And Infosys should really reflect a lot on what's making employees leave. Are they developing employees? Are there issues with compensation? Are they motivating employees? Is it a great place to work? These are the questions Infosys should be asking. Unfortunately, it's leaning towards trying to ban employees from joining competitors. So it's legally not going to hold up. In fact, the same Infosys spokesman I was reading in a newspaper today was saying that legally it's not possible for Infosys to enforce these statutes and this legality in courts. So I have no idea why they're doing it, because clearly this is not going to hold up in courts. And the reason why it cannot hold up in courts is because there is Section 27 of the Indian Contract Act, which basically says that you cannot enforce non-compete agreements in India. It's totally banned. Whether it's US or India, you cannot enforce non-compete agreements. So clearly, companies, when they ask you to think about it and ask you to sign it, it makes zero sense, because It is just not okay as per the courts and the legal system. It has been done in the past. I can think of an example where the chief operating officer of VMware, a person called Rajiv Ramaswamy, who was of Indian origin, he moved from there to being the CEO of a company called Nutanix. Now, Nutanix basically was trying to get him on board as fast as possible, but VMware went out saying that there's a non-compete agreement. You cannot join a company for 6 months. So what typically happened in this case was that they basically asked the legal team, basically did their groundwork, asked Rajiv to hold on for 6 months, and after 6 months, they made him join the job. So he is right now the CEO of Nutanix. And you can understand that Rajiv's case is different because he's the CEO of a company. Like if you're not in a senior position, this really should not matter. That's my take on this. So there will be a lot of legal experts who have weighed in terms of what's happening in Infosys, and everybody agrees that non-compete agreements is just not enforceable. So what can you do if you face such a scenario? So let's go down to what you can. Firstly, understand that this entire process is not in your hands. In terms of if you want to join a company, for example, if you have worked in a certain IT company, you want to join another IT company, you have to let the other company know that, hey, you have a certain agreement with your existing company, and there's a small risk of something happening, and the company need to be aware of it. In fact, every company will do a background check. They will do a legal review before releasing an offer. So it is actually not your headache. It's the headache of the company trying to get you in. So it's not in your hands. And companies typically what they do is they put you on some other projects. Suppose you worked on certain key projects and there is a non-compete part of it. They put you on different projects for many months and then pull you into necessary projects. So it is all up to the receiving company to figure out ways to get you in, and it's not your headache. The last piece I wanted to share a thought on was that typically the company from which you're leaving has no idea which company you're going to join. The only way they'll know of it is either if you update your LinkedIn profile. So if you're frightened, if you're not sure of how to pursue a lucrative job opportunity, I would say that don't update your LinkedIn profile, right? And do not talk to your friends about which company you're joining. Just avoid spreading the word. Most companies do not chase down employees. The key reason being that if you want to chase an employee, they'll have to do it through the legal system. They got to hire lawyers. Lawyers are extremely expensive. And for an entry-level employee, or even if it's a manager or a director, it makes very little sense to spend so much money on lawyers and going through the legal system when the outcome is not guaranteed. So it's pretty much a bunch of nonsense from my opinion, the non-compete agreements. Non-solicitation agreements are a little different because it's confidential data you use on behalf of the company, and ideally you should not be taking company data and giving it to somebody else. So there could be repercussions for stealing company data. And one classic example I would say is there was the self-driving cars, which a guy called Lewandowski, who worked in Google, founded, and he created a lot of data, and he stole the data and tried to go to Uber, and that was shot down. Google actually won the case and prevented the engineer from leaving, and also made the engineer pay a hefty fine. So this is in very, very rare scenarios that these things happen. The implementation of a non-solicitation clause or a non-compete clause. So rest assured, I think you are in a safe territory. If you are early in your career, you can do whatever you want with your career and don't bother much about what companies have to say. Okay, I'm going to stop right now. If you have any further comments or if you have further questions, let me know in the comments below. Press the like button or subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more of it. Bye-bye.